Equilume is the world leader in the research and development of lighting solutions that maximise the horse's health, performance, and overall well-being. The Equilume stable lights and casual light masks are game changers for performance horses by replicating natural sunlight and allowing them to receive the optimum level of biologically effective light, whether they are stabled, out grazing, or travelling to competition. Scientifically developed Equilume lighting products support the horse's body clock, positively influencing mood and behaviour while helping to maintain muscle tone, strengthen immunity, and ensure a sleek and shiny coat. Go to equilume.com for more information. Oh God, it's so exciting. Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
Hello, the curse of damn.
It's the best finishing score we've seen at 5-star level.
That was our reload coming into the competition.
How much he talks about an FOD and how much it means.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Eventing manager is back. Let's restore order.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
Still a great day for Ireland.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
The Equiratings Eventing Podcast.
I think it's a really important message to give to young people as well. You will feel that you need things. You need a certain amount of points in your leaving cert. This is what you think you need. And you'll realise one day that actually you don't. You'll realise that the difference between what's nice to have, which is a really good leaving cert behind you, which is our A levels, if anyone listening who doesn't know what I'm talking about, you get that I have a little bit more perspective. And I feel that helps me. A group of Chinese girls devouring, like they had 4 plates on their tray. And I thought, oh my God, that is so much food to eat. Like, I wish I could eat that much. And then they just started going back for more. I was like, what? They're eating loads. And then they just started picking up, like, going off and just getting more. And they're eating very fast as well. Like, it nearly looked like a competition. I was just so jet. My jaw was just on the floor.
Welcome to the Equiratings Eventing Podcast, and we have got an Equilume special for you listeners because we have got him back. It has been such a long time, Sam Watson. I've missed you.
Oh, that's nice.
I know.
Thanks, Nicholas.
Pleasure. It's nice to have you back on the show. Thanks
for having me back. And thanks for keeping the spotlight on me as well. That's really good for my self-esteem. Making it about me. It's good.
No. It is lovely to have you back because it feels like it has been ages since we have been able to kind of sit down and chat, and we are going to debrief Tokyo. We are a few weeks out from it now and kind of look back, I guess, and find out everything that went on behind the scenes. Dee, you are with us as well. It's nice to have him back, isn't it?
Yeah. It's he's back a good while now, so I've kind of gotten over the initial excitement. I can say that for sure, but.
He just had me back working now. Like, he's got me back, landing more contracts and doing more pitches, and yeah.
But I will say, Nickers, it was very. If I bring myself back to when he actually came back, so I suppose it was 3 or 4 weeks ago now. But meeting him at the airport and that first week of just having him back around the team, it is funny. Like, we joke a lot about not liking each other, but I must say I was pleased to have him back with us when he landed back from Tokyo. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, but it was nice just to have him back here and be like, right, now you're back with us again.
It was funny. Dee picked me up, which was a really nice thing to do because it saved me like 30 days of car parking fees in Dublin Airport. But, I'm not a great traveller. And actually part of me was thinking, if Sparks came and pick me up, then I could just drive myself home. But actually in the end, so I just go completely practical, whereas it was actually really nice to have my best mate pick me up from the airport, and we just got to go home and debrief and spend an hour and a half normally now you'd get home, you do the airport to Ballybulge usually in about 55 minutes, but we did it in about 2 hours 15, I suppose. He's not the fastest.
I was going to say, did you hit traffic or did Dee literally just...
we did actually. We did hit a traffic jam, in fairness. No, that's a low blow to someone who went out of their way to look after me. I mean, why'd you leave my house at about 2 a.m. or something to drive back to Dublin? I mean, poor fella probably didn't get back till about 4 a.m. Anyway, he's a good guy.
True friendship. There you go. Yeah. It's nice for you both to be reunited. Let's go back a few years, because that started all sort of very happy to see each other, and then you there was the odd little blow in there from both of you at some point. So I feel like normal order has been resumed, and we can go back a few weeks to kind of relive the journey with you, because I have no doubt that there were so many sort of highs, lows. It was a roller coaster of an Olympic Games anyway. So we last spoke to you properly on the podcast in Aachen. So catch us up from Aachen in terms of the trip out to Tokyo. I mean, first of all, Aachen was very, very wet, but an incredible place to quarantine.
Yeah, it was. And then I guess I began my first Olympics, really. And like one of my I was thinking, like, how do you describe this to people? Because you don't want to come across as a kind of a spoiled brat, because think how many people want to go to the Olympic Games. But it was like one of the other big first time events in my life. I didn't perform quite as well as I thought I would. I was really excited. And then actually when I got into it, it was just a bit kind of uncomfortable. It was a bit awkward. I would definitely want to do it again, and I want to perform better. Yeah. I'd be happy doing it with the same people, but it was a bit like that, it was, and then the kind of COVID Olympics thing as well. I don't know how COVID has affected other first time experiences for people, but anyway, it was different. I didn't perform quite as well as I thought I would. Anyway, so
can I get straight into this? I know, overall feeling. Can I get into this from the start? Because I think it's really important to capture the two sides of this, and we talked about it. We do talk about it still, but particularly those days we talked about it. There, I got a message from you, probably maybe somewhere between Aachen and Tokyo, maybe kind of early Tokyo, post Aachen. So you'd still maybe had, 10 days. You'd arrived, you're in a hotel, but it wasn't a positive message. It's essentially said something like, this is seriously not what, this is not all it's cracked up to be. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I can't remember exactly, but I remember reading it being like, oh man, that's not great. It was nothing to do. Sorry, where I'm going with this is it's not to do with performance, or it's not to do with all the things that normally impact your mindset at a competition. It was just the journey to this point has been long and arduous, and there was something different at the end of it than maybe you thought before we get to the competition.
Yeah, and I think different people will react differently as well to an experience like this. There's an awful lot of people telling you how you should feel. Like, in fact, people say, you must be so proud. And actually, if I'm not feeling proud or at that moment in time, you nearly subconsciously start going, because what I was feeling when I first got off the plane and went into a queue of about 1,000 people that had to spend 4 hours getting through the airport, having temperature checks, spitting into test tubes, which would just become the daily routine, like queues, distancing, COVID tests, temperature checks. There was serious security. Hats off to Tokyo for pulling off. It was amazing. But I just felt like I was on a production line. And it was the first time I ever thought of the Olympics as actually just being like zoo animals, all there to perform. The crowds people will look at you and they'll clap on TV, not in person. And then you'll have to go back to your lives again and go away. And that's probably a pretty pessimistic view of it. But that's kind of how I started feeling here. We were just on a kind of a bit of a production line, the whole thing. There wasn't any freedom. There was a Starbucks 100 yards down the road from the equestrian venue, and you couldn't get to it. You couldn't go there. It was just the canteen. There were no chip vans or anything like that. Like, it was boarding school. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's great to have been to an Olympics. But that's what you're battling with. You're feeling very different to how you think you should feel, and how I do kind of feel now. Like, I'm sat here doing a podcast outside, head to toe in Olympic gear, cap on, t-shirt on, shorts on. I love putting it on. Do you know this? You see him on stand every day.
I
I don't
seen
put
you
it
in
on.
anything else yet.
No.
I haven't seen your old
I
clothes.
mean, I
yet.
wash
think-
it. I do wash it, but I like putting it on. So I'm proud, but I'm not. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy experience.
What was obviously that was your first impression when you landed, in
Yeah.
terms and sort of the feeling of it now, but in terms of the management side of things, sort of that process of going through the airport, the quarantine, the tests, like the logistics of that are huge. That all looked to be extremely slick.
Incredible. Japan, the Japanese people, hats off. Probably my favorite race right now. So positive and happy, and yet so efficient. You know, I didn't think you could kind of put the two together. Don't get me wrong, if a bus driver drives the wrong way down a one-way system, like happened to us one day, all hell breaks loose, and feelings are made very clear. But that's how they deal with it. You know, like they will go from, if something is wrong, it's completely wrong. And otherwise, everything is about you, how you are. Like, I really hope that you are having a great day. What can I do to make this better for you? So like they did everything they could to make the experience as enjoyable as it could be. It was a difficult task, but just even having that relentless enthusiasm and positive energy from every volunteer was incredible. And yes, the efficiency in the organization, again, just phenomenal. I think they're the only people I know that could have pulled off this with the efficiency, but also then with the enthusiasm and the positivity as well. So hats off to Japan. Incredible job. And the facilities, like when you arrived, I mean, I had been to the horse park before. It wasn't fully finished, but it was in pretty good shape when I went there for the test event in 2019. But that's probably the best equestrian facility I've ever been in. I was blown away when I landed at the World Games in Kentucky in 2010. They'd done up the horse park to have everything there. And that was when I was like, whoa, I've never been anywhere like this before. This just with the air conditioned stables and stuff like that, and the quality of the finish on everything. Like if my house was built the same as Danny's stable, I would be delighted with myself. It was phenomenal.
All of the feedback that we've had from grooms, from riders, from owners, anybody that's spoken just hasn't been able to talk highly enough of it and how the facilities actually were so incredible. What about your facilities? What was your setup? Because you were separate to Sparks, weren't you?
Yeah.
So where did you stay? And did you have a cardboard bed? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, we actually both had cardboard beds. That seems to be how they're done. I actually think Sparks got the slightly better draw there. She had a nice room she shared with Sarah Ennis's groom Elsa, and they had quite a lot of space in their room, and it was quite nice. I was in a 3-bedroomed apartment with one tiny table and 6 tiny chairs, no kettle, no microwave, no TV, and then 2 people in a bed. So 6 of us in this tiny little apartment, and that was a bit of a culture shock, I suppose. When you know, like it would make my lorry that's 25 years old look pretty luxurious. So yeah, you kind of, your first impression of that is kind of like, whoa, I've got like 2 weeks here. This is weird, and I have to like get on a bus that takes an hour to come back here just for the privilege of being here, and then go back to the venue. And it would be hard for, like, me and Sparks are never really apart, so that was a weird one to get used to as well. But that's fine. We deal with that.
So you couldn't even make a cup of tea? There was not even a kettle in your room?
No, but I was very close to the dining hall. Now, the dining hall is a 2-story building that, I mean, think of the biggest Tesco's you've ever been in, and that's it. Now, okay, it's kind of, the middle area is all seating with still islands of food interspersed. Like there's a new little gem every day, like a new salad bar or a new fruit stand or a new muffin area. Like the amount of food was just ridiculous. And then just going all around the perimeter of both floors was just every different type of cuisine. So I like my food. So I mean, I did like that whole put on a little bit of weight out there.
What was your go-to in the food hall, Sam?
Well, I love dumplings. So I'd kind of go between the Asian ones and the Japanese ones. So I'd always have a couple of dumplings on there. I love the fresh fruit as well. So I'd always have a bit of fresh fruit as well. Breakfast would be scrambled eggs, some kind of lentils and beans, and some cherry tomatoes that had been nicely cooked, and some sauteed mushrooms and garlic. It was a wonderful breakfast that I had every morning.
Okay.
Very kind of protein based, tried to leave them. I bought in my bag was full of pastries and muffins every morning, but I tried to, I gave those to the grooms.
I was going to ask, so because obviously the athletes' village at an Olympic Games is full of athletes who I can't imagine, the body is a temple and everything else.
They need energy. You want to see what they eat, Nicole?
Really?
Everything on this. Oh yeah, pastries are going in there, 2 at a time. These guys are burning a phenomenal amount of fuel. I sat down beside, or when I say beside, like we were on different tables, but I could kind of see them. A group of Chinese girls, kind of looked late. I'd have said kind of between 17 and 19 age range. I don't think they were quite gymnastics, but they were kind of that bit like very slight, lean girls devouring, like they had 4 plates on their tray, and I thought, oh my god, that is so much food to eat. Like I wish I could eat that much. Like, and it was pizza, it was everything, and ice cream and all that sort of like great things, like pizza and ice cream, fantastic. I mean, there was other stuff in there that was a bit more healthy, and then they just started going back for more. I was like, what? They're eating loads, and then they just started picking up, like going off and just getting more, and they were eating very fast as well. Like it nearly looked like a competition. I was just so jet. My jaw was just on the floor. Anyway, I'd say they do some workload to burn it all off.
I bet. Who was the best person you saw in the athletes' village?
I 100%. I didn't recognize a single person, and that was the downside of the face masks. I think I sort of knew that would be the case. I mean, I did. You play a guessing game every day, going, is that a volleyballer? Is that a long distance runner? Is that a shot putter? There's a few things that you're kind of looking at. What could they be? There's some you're definitely going, that person's a coach. But that was a fun game to play. But I didn't recognize anyone. I think to be honest, I think a lot of the real celebrity athletes probably didn't stay in that village. Like the Brit riders didn't stay there. The German riders, I don't think, stayed there. Like even in eventing, like I think very few of the show jumpers stayed there. Like definitely the Irish show jumpers didn't stay there.
Okay.
It wasn't, I think, I know a few riders that landed there day one and very quickly found themselves a hotel.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. What about spare time? Because considering you're an hour away from the venue, I imagine travel actually took up a good proportion of the day there and back. But what were you able to do? Or was it very, very, very regimented as to what you couldn't do?
Yeah, it was only what you could, like there was a table tennis table. I did kind of run a bit because I have been running, and I'd run around the equestrian venue. But it's just one of those weird situations. Like you always think, like I visualize myself sat down somewhere in a corner with a laptop, which I can actually do, like if I'm in my lorry and things like that. But it's just so you're in such a different place, and I have to be honest with myself and say that like it must have been a stressful thing, because I could definitely be bored at times, but I didn't have much energy for it. Like no mental energy at all. Like drained the whole time, I would say, would be how I felt. Like I was never really wanting to just get up and go and run around. I went for a run to clear my head. I didn't run fast. I ran slowly, just to get away and have time to myself and feel like I was actually doing something productive. But that's just, I don't know, those things are weird. And again, that's quite possibly personal. Maybe there were people jumping out of their skin wanting to go and do something. and couldn't. But no, it was one of those kind of very unproductive things. But you have to be honest with yourself. Like, you're going into your first Olympic Games. You've left your family and friends and everyone behind. They've all been, no one can help dropping in lines like, "God, this is amazing! What an experience!" It's a big occasion, and while you're not thinking that or feeling it yourself on the surface, it's got to be there underneath the surface, and that's probably what's sucking up a lot of your energy.
How did you feel in terms of being away from home in that? Because you're separated from Sparks then, the boys are at home, you've been away from home for a long period of time. Actually, big events, you would generally speaking have sort of your community of eventing family around you as such, and particularly would be with Sparks. I imagine that bit was quite hard.
Yeah, we're like, we've done it the whole way through with regards to leaving the kids. I mean, they were 6 and 7 when we left. They were 7 and 8 when we came back. So we missed 2 birthdays. We're still trying to get back in the good books. What was weird was on our first call with the boys, our first FaceTime, which would have been in Aachen. Usually it's like trying to, okay, how long do we think we'll keep their attention? Like, will it be 60 seconds? Will we maybe get to 3 minutes before they're like, okay, guys, got to go, bye. That's them hanging up on us because they're just bored and they want to go off and play and they don't talk to mum and dad because they're so used to it. But actually, I suppose with lockdown, we hadn't been away for about a year and a half, or since the start of that 2020 season. So it actually would have been it was nearly 2 years, end of 2019, last European Championships was when we were probably away from them. And we realized that they were older. They had been around us obviously a lot more with lockdown as well. And it was the first time that Archie didn't want to hang up the phone, and he wanted to just keep asking us more stuff and little simple questions. And, when we asked, saying, okay, after maybe 15, 20 minutes, which is an awful long time, being like, okay, Archie, do you want to go? Do you want to go off and play? You'd be like, not really. Can I just stay talking to you guys? And that kind of gets you. We were like, oh God, I kind of miss them now. Because you worry about, are they missing us? I think I'm pretty, happy wherever I am. I'm obviously happiest when I'm at home, but I'm pretty laid back. So I wasn't homesick or anything like that. But sure, I enjoyed the peace and quiet for a while. But you kind of, when that when 2 little people at home are missing you, that's kind of a little bit. Nice.
You do get homesick though, don't you? Like, you do need those green fields eventually.
Oh yeah, in different way. Like, I kind of I'll go mad for a little bit, and you'll find me really difficult to be around because I'll just start getting silly and weird and annoying, and someone who clearly isn't used to spending time with other human beings. I'll go through that phase, and then then I'll start to get impatient and like angry for no reason at little things. Like, there'll be 2 people ahead of me in a queue for a coffee, and I'll be like, why are we queuing for coffee? Like, what a ridiculous thing to do. Yeah. So yeah, I love my island. I love being on it's always a reminder that I love home.
It's all the little, I suppose, the nice thing about these conversations is it actually always boils down to very little simple things that make it, that make the whole thing. But I remember when we were driving back down after the whole thing, and we actually haven't really spoken about the Olympics. I mean, we talked briefly about the kind of the headline items, I suppose, that night. But to be honest, I don't know how long we are since. We haven't really had anything much to talk about it. But I remember driving you back down that evening, and I felt just something, there was something special about like driving away from the experience. It's not like it was a bad experience, I don't think. And I mean, in the overall, I think it was quite a cool thing. But just, I suppose, the intensity of the whole thing, and it actually isn't just the experience of Tokyo, it's the intensity of, I don't know, a decade. And I know you don't feel that all the time, but I think there is some kind of latent thing there that, like, you're reserving, 08? You weren't on the team in 2012. You weren't on the team in 2016. Like, both of those after probably, your best ever year up to that point being 2011, and then probably something similar in 2015 at, Blair Europeans and that kind of thing. So you not being there in 08, I think you were still pretty young and a baby. But 12 was a big one to miss. 16 was a big one to miss. 20 then, you had 3 horses there ready to go after a very big 2018 and all preparation leading to that point in 2020. And then suddenly there's no Olympics in 2020 and all the horses have to come down and go back up. And I suppose where I'm going with this is that as we drove away from the whole experience that night, it wasn't just the COVID Olympics that you were kind of leaving behind. It wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't even, say, natural disappointment over a pin. I don't think you've ever had a pin in your career and then you've a pin there and yeah, look, it's annoying. It is what it is. I just think there was something nice about it all being over in a strange way. I don't know if you felt it. I felt it. I felt it for you, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that's the right thing to feel for someone else. You can't. But as we drove back to Carlow that night, it kind of just felt like you're going home to the boys. Sparks was home a couple of days before you. Your sisters were on their way to Carlow, who, your sisters are living in the UK and, they were on their way, having been in Tokyo, they were on their way to Carlow as well. The green fields and all the rest of the baby horses were there waiting. I don't know, it felt like a massive box had been ticked, and I don't say that in a small way. I don't say that it wasn't a box ticking exercise, but a thing that hadn't been done was done. How you had been told to feel could now be left behind. All of the people, all of the intensity, and now it was just going back to real life and the real things, I suppose. And that was why I suppose that journey home felt special to me. And I mean, I'm on the periphery of the whole thing, really.
I think everything you say is true, but that's what makes it a very special, nice to have. But it is still in the nice to have category. It is not in the need to have category. What I need is for the boys to be fit and well and healthy when I get the entire family. That's what you desperately feel like you need are at the top of the list and stuff like that. And I don't want to get into too much, go too philosophical on it. But I do think that's really how I feel. Whereas in London, I felt like I needed to be an Olympian because that's all I was doing. I was just an event rider that had moved to England, that had turned down the investment banks with a real good degree behind my belt. I didn't have equity ratings. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. Nothing was. I may as well have been. I mean, myself and Sparks were definitely a team, but this was what we did. We were event riders, and I felt like I needed to be an Olympian. And I know lots of riders feel that way. And therefore they would feel huge relief and huge excitement and things like that. But for me, I'm just that bit older, and I kind of been through that phase where I never felt I needed to be an Olympian. And I think it's a really important message to give to young people as well. You will feel that you need things. You need a certain amount of points in your leaving cert. This is what you think you need. And you'll realize one day that actually you don't. You'll realize that the difference between what's nice to have, which is a really good leaving cert behind you, which is our A levels, if anyone listening who doesn't know what I'm talking about, but your exams when you're a teenager, there, you get that I have a little bit more perspective. And I feel that helps me because it takes a little bit of pressure off, and that's a good thing. I'm very driven. I am addicted to two things. Like and it is a proper addiction. I have realized I am addicted to two things, both of which are quite boring to some people, but I'm addicted to progress, which is the big why. That's why I get up every day. If I feel that we can get more clients into equity ratings, or more products or better products, or the same with the horse, if I can feel like I can bring a horse to a next level or bring out some more improvement in a phase or whatever it is, I just love that. That's my why. That's why I get up. And the second addiction is process. I'm addicted to progress and to process. Process is how I do it. That's how things get better. And I love learning that. And that is, at the end of the day, when all the kind of different emotions and things like an Olympic Games do blow over, those are the two things that actually I'm left with. And I realized that all the, I went to Tattersalls to a one-day event, and there was an awful lot of progress that validates my process, because we had 5 horses on the lorry and they were all in the top 3. And there's a huge team of people while I was away for a month that have made that possible. The girls here were phenomenal while I was away, and huge testament to them, but a huge testament to everything then that hopefully I've taught some of them, in terms of how to ride and school horses and things like that. So I love all that. And I would just say to people, you'll listen to a lot of podcasts, and maybe you tuned into this podcast to feel how amazing it feels to be an Olympian. But I would say to you, how amazing does it feel for you in your journey to have progressed through your job, to have progressed as a mother or a father, to have progressed as a son or a daughter, to be a better person, to all that kind of, it sounds so cliched, but I'm telling you, as someone who's gone from being someone who had to be an Olympian to someone who actually thinks much more about why they're doing something and really enjoys how they do it and how they get good at doing it.
I find that fascinating because there is so much pressure, I think, around that phrase. And obviously, as somebody who will never be an Olympian and is never going to be on that journey, to actually get that insight, I find so interesting, especially having gone through the emotional turmoil, not only of getting to the Olympics, like Dee just sort of referenced a few moments ago, but the emotional turmoil of the last 24 months of the Olympics are cancelled, the Olympics are postponed, the Olympics are going ahead. And will they, won't they? That emotional sort of roller coaster throughout the whole period, that actually to get to this point now, you've hit the nail very, very beautifully on the head. And I think that's important for everybody, no matter what they do in life, no matter what their journey is, whatever they're looking to progress in, to remember that, because it's a really, really valid point that we all need to remind ourselves of, no matter what our targets are. What about sort of I guess we are back into the cycle of things now. You're back at work, back in the Equiratings team. The horses are running really well. There's a European Championships on the horizon. How do you feel about that life now, in terms of the Olympics are 3 years away again?
Yeah, it's in like what I always flirt with, and I've definitely mentioned with on the podcast before, is how long will I stay being an event rider? And I guess what's hard, as everyone now knows how I think and what drives me, is I've learned so much as a rider, as someone who sits in the saddle. I've learned so much. I know some of those skills are transferable to something which I love, which is national hunt racing. So I know they wouldn't be lost. But also, I think that if I went to Paris, I could produce the best performance of my life there as well, because the process would again be developing all the time, and my experience, and it's a sport that lends itself to experience being a plus, and I'm still only 35. So look, it's in the back of my mind. I'm laid back about it, as I say, because people know I don't need to go to Paris. I'm not going to repeat all that kind of stuff again. But it's definitely, I'm going with the flow a little bit, and the main thing is to enjoy what I'm doing on a daily basis and to sort of recalibrate a little bit. I think that's the other thing for people when they get a big job promotion or a big event happens in their life, to just take a little bit of time to let things settle and recalibrate. Like, I'm finding my way back into my Equiratings week. There have been some really cool breakthroughs. Everyone knows we're covering show jumping a lot more. Been enjoying the GCLs and GCTs the last couple of weekends and things like that. So I'm just finding my way back into being me again, which I think is important, and not diving straight into. I mean, having said that, the first thing I thought of when I landed, I think I must have got home around the 7th of August, and I thought it'd probably take me 3 months to get in shape to run a marathon. And there was one in Barcelona on the 7th of November, which is exactly 3 months. And I've been thinking about that. So like part of me is still a little bit kind of obviously off kilter here because I'm thinking of running a marathon. But hey, that's just kind of, that's a little bit me. But that's where I'm at. I'm just letting it all settle. I'm really looking forward to Aachen with Talisman. I'm going to Mill Street literally in a couple of hours. So look, we're definitely back on the road. And I guess what I'm excited to do is to take my experience from the Olympics, which wasn't all positive. With the dressage test, I felt I did a really good job. But what it taught me was that I wasn't in a place where I could ride that Olympic test week in, week out for, 6 months before the Olympic Games. I should have been able to do that. But the thing is that my foundation was too fragile. That test was too complex, that if I just practiced that test, I'd probably get worse at it. I had to practice bits of it or things that would set me up for it. I had to just keep working on the basics and the foundations, which you are always doing anyway. But I should have been able to practice riding that test more than I could. So I came away thinking, I need to get all of my horses, whatever level they're competing at, I need to be in a place where the level I'm going to perform at, I'm extremely comfortable, and I've done it many, many times. So when I go in there to perform on a day that really matters, it's just second nature to me, because that was the difference between the people who nailed it, like Oliver Townend's test, Michael Young's test. That was really, you could see for them, they were probably doing that test for at least they looked like they were doing it for the 100th time. So polished. So I was learning things. I wanted to take that philosophy home, and I still do.
Getting, I suppose, that adding to the process all the time, adding to the process to improve the progress. Sam, thank you. It has been fascinating. There were so many different directions that we could have taken this, and I find the sort of the psychological side of the Olympics and the understanding of it and how you're feeling now so interesting. So hopefully everybody listening at home will be as well, because there were so many people that were with you for the ride in Tokyo and were cheering you on. So thank you very much.
I'm gonna drop in one kind of debate for people, because I know a lot of people disagree with me on this and probably thought I would have gone a different way on it. The frangible pin, it was one of these new yellow pins that I wasn't aware of beforehand. And I'm not, I think that we have to keep the skill in cross country, and obviously we need the safety. We shouldn't sacrifice the sport for safety. And I think with Michael Young not being Olympic champion, for how he rode that fence, I think that pin got us off guard. Like, I feel I could have ridden that differently, knowing how easily it went off. It went off easier than I thought it would, because I didn't realize the difference between yellow pins and red pins. So I think it's a shame that happened at the Olympic Games, because I think it's the same for Mickey. I think if he knew it was going to go off that easy, he could have ridden it differently. But I'm not saying that we shouldn't have devices that collapse on cross country if you hit them with too much pace. Now, it was only a back leg trailing, but a device isn't going to know the difference between a front leg and a back leg. Like, it's just force. And sometimes that force will save a life, and sometimes it will just be annoying penalties. I think what's frustrating about what happened in Tokyo was that the yellow pin just caught us off guard a little bit. And the disappointment of it is not Sam Watson's one, it's Michael Young's one. It's cost a 3-time Olympic champion who'd be in the history books, who performed incredibly throughout the week. So I think that's tough, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is my message. I think anything that improves the skill required on cross country and probably puts more penalties on the leaderboard. And I think we have to think about that in the sport as well. Again, it's going to cause debate. Cross country was just about surviving. But there's too many people at this professionally now. Like, there's a lot of people in the game practicing really purposefully, cleverly, smartly, regularly, putting in a lot of effort. And there's going to be an awful lot of clears on the score sheet if we don't up the skill level required. And there's only so far you can push a horse on a cross country course. So if it means we have to ride a little bit more accurately, I think we've got to look at that. I actually think there's a lot that frangible pins can do for the sport, both in safety and in skill. So that's my view on that. I don't know what you guys think about it, but that's where I am. But I wanted to put it out there because I think it'll cause debate. Some people will disagree with me. Some might agree with me.
I think it's a really interesting point. Because obviously it caused a lot of debate. I know there was a lot of information sort of flying around on social media about Mickey in particular was challenging his penalties and everything else. The rules at the moment were pretty clear that once the penalties are awarded, you can't take them away. I felt you can't change that at an Olympic Games. You can't just change a rule at the Olympic Games. That has to go through the correct processes. So maybe those rules are looked at again as well, and the wording of them are all looked at again as well. I don't know, but it's a frustrating and heartbreaking way for the competition to end in that respect. But I think your point of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is a very, very, very valid one.
I think for us, your pin, in a personal sense, in the same as it is for everybody, no matter what level you're competing at, like when it impacts you and your friend and your team and your group, you'll feel it as much as Michael would have felt his. I suppose then you can look at it a little bit, you can look at it as a sport as well. And I think as a sport, I said it at the time, Nicole, in that immediate kind of one of our immediate reaction shows. As a sport, I think it's a bigger story than it has become, or like it isn't really a story. It was talked about a little bit on social media, and then it was gone. And look, Julia rightly deserved the moment the following day and the Brits and their gold medal and everything. But like, how have we not seen Michael Young's? How have we not seen it?
Yeah, we didn't see it at all. Like, we never have seen it, certainly publicly.
But,
I would say,
like this, we're talking about a third Olympic medal, Nicole.
Well, a third Olympic medal. That is a point, because Julia actually would have won anyway if the show jumping and everything would have played out as it would have played out. Which you can't say. Would she have won anyway? Yeah. I think she would have won. Michael's pole in the second round would have knocked him down to individual silver.
I don't think that's the case, Nicole.
Might not be. I mean, that's from memory.
I think
it's an important point.
No, I think it is.
I'm sure. I'll double check it. Just
listen, it's a completely different story if Julia's riding that round. I mean, the pressure in that round was incredible anyway. But like, if her horse Chipmunk is behind her, and Michael, and like, it's just a completely different situation. It's not whether Julia wins or whether Michael wins.
She would have won by 0.1, Sam.
Would she? Okay,
yeah.
That was a miscalculation on my behalf. That changes everything. To be honest, it does. Because
I don't think it does. To be honest, I don't. I mean, about butterfly effects.
No,
you don't.
She wouldn't have won. No, she wouldn't have won. I beg your pardon. He would have won by 0.9. That's my miscalculation.
Correct.
I can't add up. Never challenge Sam on maths, listeners, because you will always lose. There you go.
No, that's where I was at. Just because it's a different thing because I can't agree with Julia deserved to win. I've seen Mickey's pin, and it happened the shape of the horse, the momentum of the horse never changed. The shape was good. He trailed a hind leg just like flamenco. What's even worse was that the fence didn't fall until Michael was 3 strides away from the fence on landing. It was a very late thing. It made it look like it was faulty, and it wasn't. Those pins were changed for every horse and rider. Amazing effort by the ground staff. Everything was done. But it was the faintest touch of... Now, it's not a faint... But again, important for listeners to realize force is mass times acceleration. So the fact that both myself and Mickey were going through that combination with plenty of ground speed, forward speed, because our aim is to go clear and quick. Clear, quick and efficient. That's how we tried to go. Very similar to Chris Burton in an ERM. It's about being quick and efficient. Now, the horse was never in danger of fault. There was never a question of safety coming into it. But what's happened is that they've clipped it with their foot. Because we're being quick and efficient, we've clipped it with quite a bit of force. So we'd have to start riding those fences. And this is the reality. We'd have to start riding those fences slower. We'd have to balance them. And now, like, someone who would probably completely disagree with me would be Lucinda Green, would say, oh, well, you shouldn't have to change how you ride cross country. But Lucinda will tell you she invented the phrase cough and canter, where you have to balance a horse before a fence and not just fly in. You know, you need to sit up, check the pace a little bit, and get a different shape of jump. And that's all we'd have to do. And I think I'd be capable of doing it. I think Mickey'd be capable of doing it. But the thing was, we just didn't know that we needed to do it at that fence. We didn't realize it was going to go off quite so lightly. That's what's disappointing. Caught us off guard. And it has changed. It has kept Mickey Young out of the history books. And that does mean something to me. I think he should be a 3-time Olympic champion. That's what's hard. But I wouldn't throw the technology out with it. That's the debate here. I think that is fully the debate, and that's what gives me mixed emotions about it. But I'm a big supporter of the technology.
Why do you think we haven't seen it?
The thing I saw was must have been a recording from someone, because it was from a different angle from me. The angle that I saw of my own fence was from the live stream. So that's obviously the official footage. And then I don't know if what Michael had, the footage that he showed me, was from one of his teammates, maybe, or team members that was filming it, or maybe
presumably he's been told like he absolutely can't release this. I think he had initially said on one of his posts, like, I have the video and I want it, but he didn't put it up. And maybe, there is, I don't know, but maybe there is, it could be the FEI saying don't put it up. It could be.
No, it could be it could be just a nice decision. I mean, it could be
Julia, it could be Michael and the Julia thing, where he's not going to take it away from her. But I think as a sport, we should be asking more questions on it, just for ourselves. Like, I think it is mental that we haven't seen it. Can you imagine that happening in football?
Yeah.
Surely it's got to be reviewed. Like, surely it has to be reviewed in more detail now.
I know, but we're never going to know about it is the problem. Like, it's so behind the scenes if it ever happens. Or even the fact that, like, the way the reviews, how did you find out that you couldn't review it anymore? Like, you're digging deep into the rule books to find out when it happened, like sometime last year.
Yeah, I think definitely valid points as well. Like, transparency is cool. I mean, I even kind of half panicked at one point. The only thing about my video shot is that you can go on to the official website and just rewatch the cross country, and you will see what I've, like in the public domain. I've just snipped it and it's there on my social media. But half of me kind of panicked and thought, oh geez, am I causing a stir here? Am I being a bit of a troublemaker?
I hope that there will be more discussion that comes out of it, but I hope it will be rational, logical, genuine discussion around it. Like, I hope that what I really hope is that this has happened. The rules were the rules, but now everybody can look at that and say, right, okay, what can we learn from it? It was a yellow pin, not a red pin. What can we therefore, when should those pins be used, and some more research and development around that. And also what information needs to be made publicly available about those. Because if Sam and Michael Young don't know that difference at an Olympic Games, you're a top level athlete at an Olympics, and that would have been, I would have thought, par for the course. Like, you understand how to ride a mim clip. You surely very much, if you know that there are different types of mim clips, like Sam said, you would have learned how to ride the different types of mim clips as part of that skill.
The point is that I would never have ridden the mim clip differently before. Now I would have to ride a yellow. I don't ride a red mim clip differently. I would have to ride a yellow mim clip differently. I'd be mad if I was a manager of a team, and I have no problem saying that to anyone. Like, I fully believe that. I was like, you can't skim across that fence at pace. Even if you're accurate and stuff like that. Like, I wouldn't normally have ridden that fast into combinations, because I wouldn't have trusted my eye as much. But as everyone knows, since WEG 2014, like, I do nothing but work on my eye all the time at home, so that I can actually attack those fences and know that my eye is going to pick up what I needed to pick up. So I rode that according to plan, quick, fast, efficient, accurate. But he trailed the hind leg. I'd have to ride that a little bit differently. The other thing that I wasn't aware of, and still don't know, is if the fourth person had come into the team, would there have been 4 medals or not? And that just brings me on to two champions that I was stabled opposite and one down from. One a reigning individual European bronze medalist, one a reigning individual world gold medalist. Both of them were on the bench, which is not a new thing. You know, Tina Cook travelled out to Rio and, you know, as the sub and didn't start. Same with Camilla Spears from Ireland. But obviously the fourth person thing, where you could come in during the competition, is a new thing. And it's difficult. It's difficult to go out there and not take part. And it was obviously last minute for Cathal. It was planned for Roz and a kind of pain that she had to bear the whole time. But we know they're champions on screen and in the saddle. We've seen that before. But my God, they were champions out of the saddle as well. And no one wants to be a brilliant sub. No one wants to be a brilliant person who doesn't get to compete and do what they want to do. But they just were. And I think it's just nice for people to hear that about them as well. Like, my respect for the two of them. I think we know they can win, but I think the fact that they can also be humble and be team players and all the rest is a tribute to them as well.
I think that's a really good point. And actually, it's something that we've spoken about a bit on the show. We had Sarah Charnley, who was Roz's groom, and actually go back and listen. One of my favourite post-Tokyo chats with her, and sort of her Tokyo experience. It's well worth it. And I also understand, Sam, that you are a pretty decent table tennis player. You kept that one quiet.
Thanks. Well, she hammered me the first time. I was a bit rusty. I'd been playing Grant Wilson, our show jumping coach. He's not very good at all. So that's who I'd been playing for most of the week. I didn't play Sarah until after in the days afterwards, when I swapped roles with Sparks, and Sparks came home and I stayed on for a day or two. But yeah, then I warmed up into it, and some of the flair that I would have had when I used to beat Dearm all the time, that came back, and I managed to turn the tables on her. So that was satisfying.
Echo Ratings was first started on a table tennis table. That's right, isn't it? There you go.
And
Sam,
last thing, Nicole, thing for me is I two bits of equipment that became very important for me were earplugs and an eye mask. Okay, weird, but if you saw me, I was one of those people who now sleeps with the thing over my eyes. It just raised my awareness a little bit, as much as I hope you all get a giggle out of envisaging me putting in my earplugs and putting on my eye mask every night. I'm more to the point waking up with it kind of half across my face and kind of desperately clutching for earplugs so I have them for the next day. But sleep quality, circadian rhythm, it just really hit home how important it is to me. We travelled flamenco in his Equilume Cashel mask, and he probably slept. There's kind of famous pictures now of him at this point sleeping when he should be sleeping, and obviously performing when he should be performing. But it really helped to just keep him, just bring a little bit of consistency into his life, and keep the quality of light that's there. And it's just, I'm only saying it now because we're getting to the kind of beginning of September. Autumn is coming. Days are getting a little bit shorter. If you are thinking about it, folks, it's one of the best improvements, and like small little gains. It's not a massive investment. It actually pays itself off over time anyway, because it's such a long-term investment, but it's a massive benefit to your horse's daily life to work on that quality of life, particularly for people that are on I'm not sure if it's a latitude or a longitude, but people who are going to have short days and basically long nights and make the winters really long. They need a winter, but it doesn't need to be 5 months of doom and gloom. Get the quality of light into their daytime anyway, so that you're not having these long gloomy days, because we all feel our energy sapped a little bit. We'll all be saying, oh, how great we feel to be out on a nice sunny day, out in the natural light, and we'll all say about how kind of a depressing a day it is when it's all dark and gloomy. So look after your horses. Look up Equilume. They've kindly supported this show and this series, but they actually make a real difference to your horse's life as well. So look it up, folks.
There you go, listeners. And I'm sure if you've got any questions about it as well, they would be delighted to answer them for you. Sam, thank you. It is lovely to have you back. It is lovely to go back and look back on Tokyo and relive it with you. Have a bit of a debate in there as well. And I'm sure everybody listening at home, hopefully it's a bit of food for thought for you guys as well. But really appreciate it. Dee, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's good to have him on. It's good to have him on, all right.
I feel like it's been such a sort of, Tokyo has been at the forefront of everybody's mind for so long, and it still feels very surreal that actually it happened, and it did go ahead when there has been so much sort of upheaval and everything else over the last few years. So it's nice to look back on it and get your memories. And look, we will look forward to what we have got coming up next, because obviously, as you say, Aachen, the Europeans, there's loads, listeners. There is absolutely loads. And we will be with you every single step of the way. So Dee, Sam, thank you. A big thank you, as Sam said, to Equilume for their support of this show. And we'll be back very soon with more. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the Equa Ratings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. And I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.